You know what, chat? I am tired. You know what we should do? We should do a story time. Something to end the stream. I'm a little tired. I've actually been meaning to tell this story for a while because I've been thinking about it a little bit because I'm starting up school again. And this is just gonna be a train of thought. I'm gonna upload this to YouTube. It's just gonna be one big segment. I'm not gonna edit it. So I'm gonna try and make the story as cohesive and as streamlined as possible, okay? I think the story is gonna be good because for a lot of people, it's gonna be very relatable. At least I think so for most people. And I'm sure when it comes to the world of school, and I'm assuming a lot of you guys are in school, that you have a teacher in mind. When I say, think of a teacher who stood out to you in a bad way. It could literally be for any reason. It could be because the teacher was too strict, the teacher was a harsh grader, the teacher was not funny, the teacher was just a bad person, has a bad attitude, whatever. The point is, you guys have a teacher in your head that you don't like. I think everybody in the world has had a teacher that they don't like. Dare I say, really didn't like. And the reason why I bring this up is I thought after high school, I would never have teachers nearly as bad as the teachers I did have in high school. And since I'm back in college, I was proven wrong. Because right now, I am on the pre-nurse track. And one of the classes that I need to take is a class about human development, the psychological development of humans. And we start by talking about babies, and then we go all the way into adulthood, and then we go all the way to death. And we talk about the development and the reasons why habits form, why people act the way they do, why people turn out the way that they do. We're analyzing the psychology behind it. And it was a class that I needed to take. I wasn't going to voluntarily take a class like that because that stuff just doesn't interest me. But at the end of the day, I needed to take it, so I signed up for it. And the class was easy. Everything was pretty much online. But the one thing that annoyed the shit out of me was the fact that the class only required you to be in person just for attendance. She would pass around, the professor would pass around an attendance sheet, and you need to write your name on it. And she would only pass this out towards the end of class. So literally, the only reason why I ever went in person twice a week was because of that sheet of paper. Everything else was online. The slides were copies of the files that she would upload online. So there was no point for us to even listen to her talk. But in hindsight, because I took this class, I have this story to tell you guys. So I guess it's okay. Now, the class starts, and let me paint the scene for you. I sit in the back because that's where I'm most comfortable, mostly because I don't like to pay attention. I do the bare minimum to get the A in the class, but then I don't do anything else beyond that. No extra credit, no volunteering, no, hey, stay after class if you want to review your work. I'm like, nope. The moment it hits the top of the hour or the moment the class ends, I am out. I get out of there so fast, there's a cloud of dust from my seat. Like this is like Speedy Gonzalez or something like that, right? So the class starts and the professor is blind. She is visually impaired. She can barely see. And I don't mind that. You know, I respect the professor for even doing a profession like this when she's so visually impaired. She can't even see her students. She can barely see what's in front of her. She was so blind, she needed to get a magnifying glass to see stuff that's right in front of her. Like put a phone in front of your face, and then you were still so blind you needed to put a magnifying glass on your eye to see what was on your iPhone. That is how blind she was. And I'm not judging, okay? You gotta do what you gotta do, and I respect it. Student-wise, everybody was fine, except one girl. And this one girl she's in my memory for all the wrong reasons. Because she was a teacher's pet, but she was like a brain rot teacher's pet, which is like unheard of. It's like I don't know. It's like a combination that not even Satan himself would even conjure up to torture the worst people in history. She talked in a certain way that made me think she had some sort of mental thing going on. Like, she would walk up to people and she would go, "Hey, are you done with that? Oh, I'm going to finish that tomorrow, so I can turn it in 2 days on Thursday." I'm no psychologist, okay? But I thought maybe she was on the spectrum. Didn't ask her, didn't really want to talk to her, but her outbursts during class really annoyed me. So there's the scene for you. Professor and this one really annoying student. Now the reason why I'm talking about this professor in particular is because in addition to her teaching the class, and I think she did a good job teaching the material, even though it was basically redundant and she was reading it word for word off of the slides, and then she would give her own commentary on top of it. She had this weird habit, dare I say obsession, of talking about sex. And later in the class, I found out that she was studying to get her PhD in sexology. She was going to be the sex goddess, the sex knower, the come to me, literally, if you want to have a good time and you get to know about all the secrets about having the best sex ever. And you know what? You do you. But every single time we showed up in class, she would always talk about sex in one way or another. Okay, now that's enough for setting the scene. In class, the grading system was fine, but there was one assignment in particular that triggered everything about her talking about sex all the time. And it was a journal, a take-home journal. And in this journal, we were supposed to write entries throughout the semester, talking and reflecting about the material that we covered in class. So it could be something about babies, it could be talking about the psychology behind babies developing their fine motor skills, like how they start moving around, how they stand up, why they grow the way they do, like why they become introverted, whatever. Anything covered in class, we could write about it. And the professor specifically stated, in addition to reflecting on the material, you didn't even need to stay on topic. Sometimes you could talk about other things. And she gave examples. You could talk to me about what you did today, what you did throughout the week. Maybe you could even open up to me, talk about your personal struggles, maybe talk about things that are going at home, maybe you want to share some mental hardships that you have been facing. And I heard that and I'm like, little weird. You know why I think it's a little weird? Because I wouldn't open up to a college professor that I will never see again about personal stuff that I've been dealing with throughout my entire life. I would talk to mom and dad about it. If I couldn't do that, I would talk to my friends about it. If I couldn't do that, I'd probably just cry and eat ice cream in the hot tub. Ice cream in a hot tub, weird. But I don't think I'm crazy for thinking that you wouldn't go to a college professor or a teacher really to talk about your deep mental insecurities and struggles. I just don't think the professor is like a good option. But I thought it was weird. But then what she said after this just tossed me off the deep end where my jaw dropped and I was like, ain't no way you said that. And what she said was, you can even talk to me about sexual stuff. I'm getting my PhD in sexology anyway, so, you know, I'm your girl. You can talk to me about anything. You could even ask me stuff like, oh, professor, what does an orgasm feel like? And I was just, whoa, hold the phone. You what? Ain't no way you just mentioned that. Don't get me wrong, I'm not gonna pry into everybody's sex lives. That's your thing. That's my thing. Okay? But remember, this is a college class. I'm going to assume, and I think this is reasonable, that by the time you're in college, even if you didn't, you know, get intimate with another person, you probably have explored your body, right? And you probably explored it until you finished. So I don't think anybody in that class ever needed or even thought about asking a college professor, what does an orgasm feel like? I think we all know how that feels because we did it on our own time, not in the classroom, and definitely in the safety of our own little bubble, whether that's in, you know, our rooms, our bedrooms, or the bathroom or whatever, just anywhere else. So I was like, whoa, that is weird. And you guys remember the girl that I told you about, where she had this like very unique way of talking? When she heard that, you know how she went? And she went, oh yeah. I was like, what? Like I was spamming her, like in League of Legends, the question mark, it was just ba. And I was like, why would you even react? Like, why would you even say anything like that? But the professor was so happy. She was like, oh my God, yeah. Like, you know, we could talk about like other stuff. Like, how do you have good sex? Like, how do you communicate during sex? How do you get spicy during sex? And I'm like, we really do not need to have this conversation right now. This isn't even on topic. At least we shouldn't be talking about this on the first day of class. So from then on out, my impression was messed up. It was so bad. I was like, no, I'm not doing this. And then each class after that, from that class forward, we will be talking about anything. We could be talking about, oh hey, when children grow up, and I'm starting at children, but don't think I'm going in that direction. We start about children, and then we say growing up. When you get into your teens and your hormones start changing, and you start looking at other people in a bit more of a curious way. You know, your body starts to react when you see somebody you like, right? And she said, well, in order to make sure that you have healthy development in the sexual sense, she would start yapping a bit and talking about, well, you need to learn how to, you know, masturbate good, and you need to know how to do it properly, and you need to know to have the confidence to just enjoy what you like and be open about it. And then she would go on something else where she said, oh, even when you grow into adulthood, you know, sex doesn't stop after you have kids. Adults are very much capable of having a lot of fun in the bedroom when the kids aren't around, even though they're in their 40s and 50s. And again, I'm sitting here and I'm going, well, yeah, I guess. I still don't understand what this has to do with the course material, because we're not even talking about that stuff yet. You just kind of just went on a tangent and just started talking about this stuff. But sure, I guess, you know, even I will acknowledge the fact that having good, like, you know, sexual expression and sexual health is important for growth, for humans in general. Okay, like, let's just be mature and just admit we are wired for that stuff. But she would just go on and on and on. And she kept going on that topic where she would go, yeah, your parents, even though they're getting older, they can still have amazing sex. And you wouldn't believe where she went after she said that. The thing I'm about to say next is something you never ever want to hear. But because I heard it, you got to hear it too. So I'm going to ruin everything for all of y'all, okay? She said, your grandparents can have hot, amazing sex in their 80s, 90s, and even to the triple digits if they last that long. Mental shattered. Eyes, might as well just rip them out. Ears, might as well rip them off. Head, might as well rip that off. Why would you say that? You know what I mean? It's like, why is everything about sex? Everything is about sex. Every chapter, every topic, every other sentence, she somehow connects it with sex. And she takes it from 0, not to 100, but to 1,000. And then when she thinks she reached, she maxed out the meter, you know what she does? She says, nah. She snaps it in half and then she pours it all over. And then she spreads it. And she talks about it everywhere so that everyone in the class can hear about it. And she's so happy talking about it. And I'm like, what is happening, man? Like, what is going on? And the girl, again, she would use brain rot terms that even I don't really understand. Okay, look, I'm not in tune with Gen Alpha slang. The only thing I know is skibbity and gyat and something else maybe. But then she would say stuff like me and the boys looking at the girls, and I'm like, what Why are you feeding it? It's like this girl sees like a fire, like a forest fire, and the first thing that she thinks is, I'm gonna pour oil on it. She just makes everything worse, and I could see everybody else in the class just going, oh. And I can see somebody like grabbing their iPhone and they're pushing the volume button. I saw somebody do that. They maxed out the volume meter on their AirPods so they can just tune them out even harder. But I didn't do that. You want to know what I did? I, against my will, developed a skill, and I'm not kidding. I developed a skill to force my ears to start ringing. Kind of like when you get hit by a flashbang in a video game where it just goes sing, right? I can do that. I can just turn off sound. I can do that to this day. Not nearly as often because I haven't had a need for it, but I can still do that. I never thought that cringing at sex could lead to me being able to have that skill. And I feel like I'm not doing a good job in telling the story, but try to bear with me. I'm going to get better, and I'm going to try and streamline my stories. But you just gotta know, even the Gooners online, I think they have the mental capacity. Even they have the mental capacity to go, maybe in a college classroom, if I was a college professor, I probably shouldn't talk about not safe for work stuff this much, if at all. Like, I feel like the only relevant times in this class in particular where you would even start talking about that stuff is where people reach the age in their lives where they start having families. Then you can talk about that. But why are we talking about kids in like 6-7 years old, like around that range in development, and then she just transitions it into sex? Like, why? Like, we start at kids and then we finish at sex. Like, saying that sentence probably put me on a watch list somewhere, okay? But you see what I mean? I'm like, why are you even doing that? And then in the journals, I didn't know what to talk about. I'm like, if she's this passionate, should I talk about it so I can get max points, so I can get the A, or should I just talk about the course material? Like, should I be a simp for this professor and just sell my soul and just talk about sex? Because that's something she's so obviously and like so blatantly passionate about. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. And I end up not doing it, but it's like, this was so much unnecessary stress, right? And it's just like, by the time I finished the class, I was like a shell of myself. Like, trust me, I am just as much of a Gooner as the next person. But by the time the class was over, with the stuff being said by the professor and then the girl in the back just throwing oil onto the fire, I was just like, I'm done. I was dragging my feet by the time the class was over. I was dragging it. And I will come home, let my backpack roll onto the floor, stare at my bed, be a little schizophrenic and hear the bed saying, get in me. Just fall on top of me, voice crack, and just close your eyes. And I would just be like, just out, just straight up out. Looking back on that class, I did get an A, by the way. Not that it matters, but oh my god, I'm going to remember that class for all the wrong reasons for the rest of my life, against my will. But I thought I'd share it. Why? I don't know. I probably thought that it was relatable. Not having a teacher that talks about sex, but just having a teacher or instructor in general that is just so unlikable and so out of touch, I guess you could say, where it's like anything that comes out of this professor's mouth, like you hear it and you just go, why? Like, I don't know. Let me know if you guys related to this story of just having a teacher that was just so unlikable in your eyes.